Commander Vex Collar stood on the bridge of his massive scout ship and watched the blue planet grow larger on his viewing screen. His 6 eyes focused on the swirling white clouds that covered parts of the world below. This was the 3rd planet, from a yellow star, and his sensors showed it was full of life. More importantly, it was full of the kind of life his people needed. The Zephyrian Empire had been hunting across the galaxy for over 1,000 years. They had perfected the art of finding worlds with intelligent species and taking what they needed. Some aliens they used for labor in their deep mines. Others became food for the growing population back home. The smartest ones were kept as pets or entertainment for the ruling class. Vex Collar had led 47 successful harvesting missions. He knew exactly how to read a planet and its people. His scanners showed him everything he needed to know about this world they called Earth. The dominant species was a bipedal creature that walked on 2 legs and had basic tool-making abilities. They fought with crude projectile weapons and had only just begun to explore space with primitive rockets. The population was perfect for harvesting. Over 7 billion individuals spread across several continents. They were divided into hundreds of smaller groups that fought among themselves constantly. This made them even easier targets since they would not work together. When the real threat arrived, his second-in-command, Tech Voral, approached with the final survey report. The young officer was eager to prove himself in his first major harvest operation. He had spent days studying the human settlements and their defensive capabilities. The humans had built cities with millions of inhabitants packed closely together. Their military forces used simple kinetic weapons that fired metal projectiles. Their most advanced aircraft moved slower than a Zephyrian soldier could run. Their space presence was laughably weak, with only a few small stations orbiting there. Planet. Vex Collar reviewed the tactical assessment and nodded with satisfaction. This would be another easy conquest to add to his record. The humans showed all the signs of a species ready for harvest. They had grown numerous, but remained technologically primitive. They fought constantly among themselves, which meant they had no real unity. Most importantly, they had never faced a threat from space, so they would be completely unprepared. The harvest fleet consisted of 12 massive ships, each capable of holding millions of captives. The plan was simple and had worked perfectly on dozens of other worlds. First, they would destroy the major population centers to break the spirit of resistance. Then they would land harvesting ships to collect the survivors. Within a few days, the entire operation would be complete. Captain Jake Morrison was running routine patrol near Jupiter when his communications officer picked up strange signals. The USS Defender was one of only 6 deep space vessels in the human fleet. Most of Earth's military focused on planet-based conflicts and had little interest in space operations. Morrison had been pushing for years to expand humanity's space presence, but government officials always said there was no immediate threat. They were wrong. His sensors were now showing multiple large objects moving toward Earth at incredible speed. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez worked frantically at her tactical station, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. The objects were massive and moving in perfect formation. No human technology could build ships that large or move them that fast. This had to be contact with alien intelligence. Morrison tried to open communications with the approaching vessels. He broadcast on multiple frequencies, using mathematical sequences and basic images to show peaceful intent. The alien ships ignored every attempt at contact and continued toward Earth at maximum speed. Amy's screens lit up with weapons signatures as the alien fleet reached Earth orbit. 12 ships took positions around the planet, while smaller craft began descending toward major population centers. The aliens were not here for peaceful contact. This was an invasion. The first energy beams struck without warning. New York disappeared. In a flash of light that could be seen from space. London vanished seconds later, followed by Tokyo and Moscow. The aliens were targeting the largest cities first, and their weapons were beyond anything humans had ever imagined. Morrison watched in horror as city after city was destroyed from orbit. His crew stood frozen at their stations as they witnessed the end of human civilization. Within an hour, over 50 major cities had been eliminated, and hundreds of millions of people were dead. But something strange happened after the initial bombardment. The aliens stopped firing and began landing huge ships in the destroyed urban areas. They were not trying to kill every human on the planet. They were harvesting survivors from the ruins. Amy picked up communications from the few remaining military bases on Earth. Scattered forces were trying to organize resistance, but most of their command structure had been eliminated in the first attack. The aliens had struck with perfect timing to decapitate human leadership while leaving enough survivors for their purposes. Large alien transports were landing near refugee camps and destroyed cities. Armored soldiers emerged from these ships and began rounding up human survivors. The aliens moved efficiently and showed no interest in killing unless humans tried to fight back. They wanted captives, not corpses. Morrison realized what was happening. Humanity was not facing an enemy that wanted to destroy them. They were facing slavers who saw humans as valuable livestock. The initial bombardment was meant to break resistance and make collection easier. The aliens had done this before on other worlds. The few surviving government officials were broadcasting surrender messages, but the aliens ignored them completely. They had no interest in negotiation or treaties. Humans were not seen as intelligent beings worthy of communication. They were simply another species to be harvested and processed. Within 24 hours, the initial phase of the invasion was complete. Most major population centers lay in ruins, and alien harvesting operations were underway across the globe. Millions of humans had been loaded onto transport ships and taken to the massive harvest vessels in orbit. Commander Vex Collar reviewed the operation reports with satisfaction. Everything had proceeded according to plan. The human military response had been pathetically weak, and most survivors were now in custody. A few scattered groups were still hiding in remote areas, but they posed no real threat. The resistance would collapse within days, as it always did. Humans would realize that fighting was hopeless and would surrender to save their families. The harvest ships would be full within a week, and the fleet could return home with another successful mission completed. But Vex Collar had made the same mistake that had doomed dozens of other predator species throughout galactic history. He had looked at human technology and assumed he understood human nature. He had seen their divided governments and concluded they could not work together. He had witnessed their small wars and believed they would break easily under pressure. Zephyrian Commander had no way of knowing that humans had never faced an existential threat before. Every war in human history had been between groups of humans fighting over resources or territory. No human had ever faced the complete extinction of their species. What Vex Collar was about to discover was that humans were not just another prey species to be harvested. They were survivors who had climbed to the top of their world's food chain through adaptability and determination. When faced with extinction, they would not surrender quietly. The hunt was about to become something the Zephyrian Empire had never experienced before. The prey was about to fight back. Colonel Ben Carter crawled through the ruins of what used to be Colorado Springs and tried not to think about the millions of people who had died in the first day of the invasion. The aliens had struck the city with their energy weapons and turned most of it into melted glass and twisted metal. But they had not killed everyone, and that was their first mistake. Carter had been at the underground command center when the attack began. The facility was buried deep enough to survive the orbital bombardment, and most of his communications equipment was still working. In the 3 days since the invasion started, he had made contact with surviving military units around the world. The picture was grim, but not hopeless. Major cities were gone, but smaller towns and rural areas had been mostly ignored by the initial attack. Military bases in remote locations were still operational, and their personnel were eager to fight back. The aliens had broken human civilization, but they had not broken the human spirit. Dr. Lisa Park worked in a makeshift laboratory set up in the basement of a destroyed hospital. She was a xenobiologist who had spent her career studying the possibility of alien life. Now she was studying actual alien prisoners and learning things that could save humanity. The first alien soldier had been captured when a transport ship crashed during a storm. The pilot survived the crash, but was badly injured and could not escape before human forces arrived. 2 more aliens were captured when their ground patrol was ambushed by survivors hiding in the ruins of Denver. What Dr. Park discovered changed everything. The alien technology was far more advanced than human science, but it was also more complex and dependent on biological interfaces. The aliens wore bioarmor that connected directly to their nervous systems. Their weapons were powered by organic batteries that needed constant biological input to function. Most importantly, the aliens had never faced organized resistance before. Their equipment and tactics were designed for dealing with frightened civilians who would surrender quickly. They had no experience fighting against trained soldiers who knew how to adapt and improvise. Sergeant Rick Stone led a squad of survivors who had been conducting hit-and-run attacks against alien patrols. They quickly learned that the aliens were not invincible. Their energy shields could be overloaded by concentrated gunfire from multiple directions. Their bioarmor was vulnerable to certain chemicals found in common cleaning supplies. The aliens moved in predictable patterns and seemed confused when humans did not behave as expected. They would set up collection points and wait for survivors to come to them seeking food or medical care. When humans instead attacked these positions, the aliens were slow to adapt their tactics. Stone's biggest success came when his team ambushed an alien supply convoy. The transport vehicles were lightly armored, and the escort troops were not prepared for roadside explosives. His squad destroyed 3 transports and captured enough alien equipment to arm 2 more resistance cells. Admiral Helen Brooks commanded the surviving space fleet from a hidden base on the far side of the moon. Only 4 human ships had escaped the initial attack on Earth orbit, and she was determined to make them count. The aliens controlled the space around Earth, but they had made another crucial mistake. The Zephyrian fleet was positioned for a harvesting operation, not a military campaign. Their massive harvest ships were vulnerable targets full of human prisoners. Their escort vessels were designed to intimidate primitive species, not fight actual space battles. Brooks began using hit-and-run tactics against isolated alien ships. Her vessels would emerge from behind asteroids or debris fields and attack before disappearing again. The aliens were confused by this strategy since their previous victims had never fought back in space. The first major space victory came when Brooks led an attack on an alien supply ship traveling between the harvest fleet and their home system. The ship was destroyed, and its cargo of rare materials fell into human hands. More importantly, the attack proved that alien ships could be defeated with proper tactics. Captain Jake Morrison brought the USS Defender back to Earth orbit to support the resistance efforts. His ship had been modified with salvaged alien equipment and was now capable of hitting targets on the planet's surface. Morrison began targeting alien collection centers and transport hubs. The aliens were starting to take casualties they had never expected. Commander Vex Collar received reports of dozens of lost patrols and destroyed equipment. The humans were not surrendering as predicted and were instead becoming more organized and effective with each passing day. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez worked with Dr. Park to analyze captured alien technology. They discovered that the aliens used quantum frequencies that human brains could actually interface with naturally. This was completely unexpected, since the aliens had assumed humans were too primitive for such advanced interaction. The breakthrough came when Rodriguez successfully activated an alien communication device using only her thoughts. The device connected to the alien tactical network and revealed the locations of every alien unit on the planet. For the first time since the invasion began, humans had intelligence about enemy movements. Carter used this information to coordinate attacks across multiple continents. Resistance cells in Asia struck alien positions at the same time as forces in Europe and North America. The synchronized attacks convinced the aliens that humans had a unified command structure they had failed to detect. Psychological impact on the Zephyrian forces was enormous. They had been told this would be a simple harvesting operation against a primitive species. Instead, they were facing coordinated resistance from an enemy that seemed to learn and adapt faster than their own forces. Dr. Park made another crucial discovery when she examined the bioneural interfaces used in alien equipment. The technology was designed to work with Zephyrian brain patterns, but it could be modified to respond to human thought processes. This meant humans could potentially use alien weapons and vehicles against their creators. The first human to successfully pilot an alien aircraft was Lieutenant Tony Walsh. He had been a test pilot before the invasion and volunteered to try the modified neural interface. The alien fighter craft responded to his commands and proved to be far superior to any human aircraft. Walsh used the captured fighter to attack alien ground positions and proved that their air superiority was not absolute. More importantly, he demonstrated that human pilots could learn to use alien technology effectively with proper training and equipment modifications. The resistance was growing stronger every day. What had started as scattered groups of survivors was becoming an organized military force. Humans were learning to use alien weapons and technology while maintaining the flexibility and unpredictability that gave them their only advantage. Commander Vex Collar found himself facing something completely outside his experience. The harvest operation was falling behind schedule, and his forces were taking unacceptable losses. The humans were not behaving like any species he had encountered before. Previous harvesting targets had either surrendered immediately or fought briefly before giving up. The humans seemed to fight harder the longer the conflict continued. They adapted to alien tactics faster than the aliens could adapt to human resistance. For the first time in his long career, Vex Collar began to wonder if the Zephyrian Empire had made a serious mistake. The humans were proving to be unlike any prey species he had ever encountered. They were becoming dangerous. What the alien commander did not understand was that humans had never faced extinction before. Every challenge in human history had been overcome through adaptation and cooperation. The invasion had united humanity in a way that no previous threat had ever achieved. The prey was learning to hunt. Engineer Tony Walsh stood in front of the captured alien fighter craft and marveled at how much humanity had learned in just 2 weeks. The ship that had once seemed impossibly advanced was now partially understood. Human engineers had figured out how to modify its control systems and even improve some of its basic functions. The breakthrough had come when Dr. Kate Miller discovered that Zephyrian technology operated on principles that were actually simpler than human science in some ways. The aliens had advanced faster than humans, but they had taken shortcuts that created vulnerabilities. Their bioneural interfaces were powerful, but they were also rigid and predictable. Miller worked with a team of physicists and engineers in a hidden laboratory built inside an abandoned mine. They had been studying captured alien equipment for days and making discoveries that changed everything humans thought they knew about advanced technology. The most important finding was that alien systems were designed to work with compliant users. The Zephyrians had never encountered a species that would try to reverse engineer their technology or use it in unexpected ways. This meant their security systems were weak and their control protocols could be bypassed. Pilot Alex Turner had become the most experienced human operator of alien technology. He had learned to fly 3 different types of Zephyrian aircraft and could operate their ground vehicles with increasing skill. More importantly, he had discovered weaknesses in alien tactics that could be exploited. Turner found that alien pilots followed rigid flight patterns that made them predictable in combat. They had been trained to intimidate primitive species, not engage in actual dogfights with skilled opponents. When faced with unpredictable human tactics, they often made fatal mistakes. The aliens were growing frustrated with human resistance. Commander Vex Collar had requested additional forces from the Zephyrian High Command, but his superiors were reluctant to commit more resources to what should have been a simple harvesting operation. Instead of reinforcements, Vex Collar received War Master Vic Norris and a unit of elite hunter soldiers. These specialists had never failed to break the resistance of a conquered species. They were equipped with the most advanced Zephyrian weapons and had centuries of experience in dealing with difficult prey. Vic Norris was confident that the human resistance would collapse once they faced truly professional soldiers instead of the regular harvesting troops. He had studied reports from the operation and concluded that humans were simply more stubborn than most species, but not actually dangerous. The War Master was wrong. His first encounter with human forces came when he led a raid on a resistance base hidden in the Rocky Mountains. The humans had been expecting the attack and had prepared defenses that Vic Norris had never seen before. Colonel Carter had positioned his forces in overlapping fields of fire and created multiple fallback positions. When the alien elite troops attacked, they found themselves facing coordinated resistance from enemies who refused to break and run. The humans fought with a determination that shocked the experienced alien warriors. More troubling for Vic Norris was the fact that humans were using modified alien weapons against his forces. The resistance had learned to turn Zephyrian technology against its creators and was becoming more effective with each encounter. Dr. Park made another crucial discovery when she analyzed the bioneural interfaces used by the elite alien troops. The more advanced systems were actually more vulnerable to human interference because they relied on complex biological processes that could be disrupted. Park developed a virus that could be introduced into alien neural networks through their own interface systems. The virus would cause feedback loops that disabled weapons and armor while causing severe disorientation in the alien users. It was a weapon that turned the aliens' greatest strength against them. Captain Morrison led the first test of the new viral weapon when his ship intercepted an alien patrol near Mars. The Defender had been equipped with transmitters that could inject Park's virus into enemy systems during close combat. The results exceeded all expectations. The alien patrol ships lost power and their weapon systems failed completely. Morrison's crew was able to capture 3 intact vessels and take their crews prisoner. It was the first time humans had captured alien ships in space combat. The success at Mars convinced Admiral Brooks that humanity could actually win the war. She began planning a major offensive using the growing fleet of captured and modified alien vessels. The humans were no longer just resisting the invasion, they were preparing to go on the attack. Turner led a squadron of human pilots flying captured alien fighters in the first major air battle over North America. The aliens had been using their aircraft to support ground operations, but they were not prepared for organized air-to-air combat. The human pilots used tactics developed in Earth's atmosphere against opponents who had never faced such aggressive flying. Turner's squadron shot down 12 alien aircraft while losing only 2 of their own. The battle proved that humans could dominate the skies using the aliens' own technology. On the ground, Sergeant Stone was leading increasingly bold attacks against alien positions. His forces now included soldiers equipped with modified alien weapons and armor. They moved faster and hit harder than regular human troops, while maintaining the flexibility that made human tactics so effective. Stone's biggest victory came when his unit captured an alien command post and accessed their tactical network. The information revealed the locations of major alien installations and the movement patterns of their mobile forces. It was intelligence that allowed the resistance to plan coordinated strikes across multiple continents Dr. Miller made, a discovery that changed the entire strategic situation. She found that the alien fleet was controlled through a central command matrix that had never been designed to deal with captured vessels being turned against them. The system assumed that all alien technology would remain under Zephyrian control. This weakness meant that humans could potentially take control of the entire alien fleet by infiltrating the command network. It would require getting close to the main command ship, but the potential reward was enormous. Communications. Officer Sam Pierce had been monitoring alien transmissions and learning their language and communication protocols. He discovered that the Zephyrians were becoming increasingly concerned about the length of the harvesting operation and the growing resistance. Pierce intercepted messages between Vexcaller and the High Command that revealed serious divisions within the alien leadership. Some commanders wanted to abort the operation, while others demanded that more resources be committed to breaking human resistance. And most important, intelligence Pierce gathered was the location and defensive systems of the main Zephyrian command ship. The massive vessel controlled the entire fleet and contained the central processing systems that coordinated all alien operations on Earth. Morrison began planning an assault on the command ship using a combination of captured alien vessels and modified human ships. It would be the most dangerous operation of the war, but success could end the invasion and free all the captured humans. Turner volunteered to lead the fighter escort for the assault force. He had become humanity's most experienced pilot of alien technology and was confident that his squadron could protect the assault ships long enough to reach their target. The plan required perfect timing and coordination between space and ground forces. While Morrison attacked the command ship resistance forces on Earth, would launch simultaneous strikes against all major alien installations to prevent them from reinforcing their fleet. Carter coordinated the ground attacks while Brooks commanded the space forces. Dr. Park prepared multiple versions of her viral weapon to ensure that alien systems would be completely compromised. Everything depended on catching the aliens by surprise and hitting them before they could adapt. War-Master Thek Norris realized too late that he had seriously underestimated human capabilities. His elite forces were being systematically defeated by an enemy that seemed to learn and adapt faster than Zephyrian tactical doctrine could accommodate. The humans were not just resisting, they were evolving. Every encounter taught them something new about alien technology and tactics. They were becoming more dangerous with each passing day, while the Zephyrian forces remained bound by rigid procedures that had worked against previous prey species. Commander Vexcaller found himself facing a crisis unlike anything in Zephyrian military history. The harvest operation had become a full-scale war against an enemy that refused to accept defeat. Worse, the humans were winning. The hunters had become the hunted, and the prey was learning to kill. The moment had arrived for Operation Turnabout, and Colonel Carter felt the weight of humanity's future pressing down on his shoulders. Every resistance cell across the globe was in position and waiting for his signal. This coordinated attack would either free humanity or result in the complete destruction of the remaining human forces. Dr. Park's viral weapon had been distributed to strike teams on every continent. The bioneural virus that she had developed could now be deployed through multiple delivery systems. Captured alien equipment had been modified to broadcast the virus directly into Zephyrian networks, while human soldiers carried devices that could inject it through physical contact. Major Chris Barnes led the assault team that would infiltrate the largest alien harvesting center in North America. The facility held over 2 million human captives and was defended by hundreds of alien soldiers. Barnes knew that his team faced almost certain death, but also knew that millions of lives depended on their success. The harvesting center was built around an alien transport ship that had landed in the ruins of Chicago. Massive force fields contained the human prisoners, while alien processing equipment sorted them for shipment to the fleet in orbit. Barnes had studied the facility for weeks and identified several weak points in its defenses. At exactly midnight Earth time, the resistance struck simultaneously on 6 continents. Explosions lit up the night sky as human forces attacked alien positions with weapons and tactics the invaders had never encountered before. The careful coordination convinced many alien commanders that they were facing a military force far larger than intelligence estimates had suggested. Barnes led his team through the sewers beneath Chicago and emerged inside the harvesting centers. Perimeter. His soldiers moved with precision, born of desperation and months of fighting against impossible odds. They knew this might be humanity's last chance. The first indication that the virus was working came when alien weapons began malfunctioning during the initial exchanges of fire. Zephyrian soldiers found their bio-armor becoming sluggish and unresponsive, while their energy weapons lost power at critical moments. The technology they had always relied upon was turning against them. Sergeant Stone's unit struck the alien command post outside Denver at the same moment Barnes began his assault in Chicago. Stone had been fighting the aliens longer than anyone and had learned to read their tactical patterns. He knew exactly when and where to hit them for maximum effect. The alien defenses crumbled faster than anyone had dared hope. Months of careful preparation and intelligence gathering paid off as human forces struck precisely at the weakest points in Zephyrian positions. What should have been desperate suicide missions became overwhelming victories. In space, Admiral Brooks led the combined human fleet toward the main Zephyrian command ship. Her force included captured alien vessels operated by human crews and modified human ships equipped with reverse-engineered technology. It was the largest space battle in human history. Pilot Turner flew escort for the assault force in a fighter that was more human than alien, despite its Zephyrian origins. Human. Engineers had rebuilt the craft with improved weapon systems and enhanced maneuverability. Turner had become living proof that humans could not only use alien technology, but make it better. The space battle began when Brooks' fleet emerged from behind Earth's moon and caught the alien patrol ships by surprise. The Zephyrians had been monitoring the attacks on the planet below and were not prepared for a coordinated assault from space. Turner's squadron engaged alien fighters while the larger ships pressed toward the command vessel. The human pilots used tactics that confused and frustrated their opponents. Instead of the predictable attack patterns the aliens expected, humans flew in seemingly random formations that made them impossible to target effectively. Dr. Miller monitored the virus propagation from her command center and watched as alien systems failed across the globe. The feedback loops she had designed were spreading through Zephyrian networks faster than their technicians could isolate and contain them. Centuries of technological advancement was being undone by human ingenuity. Morrison brought the USS Defender alongside the alien command ship and began the most dangerous part of the operation. His crew had to physically board the massive vessel and fight their way to the central control systems. It was a mission that required both courage and technical expertise. Morrison's boarding party included Dr. Park and several technicians who could operate the captured interface devices. They would need to access the Zephyrian command network directly and upload the master virus that would disable the entire fleet. The fighting inside the command ship was fierce but brief. Alien defenders were hampered by failing equipment and confusion as their communication systems became unreliable. Human soldiers pressed forward with determination that surprised even their enemies. Commander Vex Kaller watched his carefully planned harvest operation collapse in real time. Reports flooded in from across the Earth of successful human attacks and massive equipment failures. His own ship was being boarded by the very creatures he had intended to harvest. The Zephyrian commander finally understood the magnitude of his error. Humans were not prey animals to be collected and processed. They were apex predators who had fought their way to dominance on one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. The Empire had awakened something that should have been left alone. Master Vecnorus faced a mutiny among his own forces, as lower-ranking soldiers realized that their supposed technological superiority was meaningless against human adaptability. The rigid military doctrine that had served the Empire for centuries was collapsing under pressure from an enemy that refused to follow the rules. Barnes succeeded in freeing the prisoners from the Chicago Harvesting Center and discovered something that changed everything. The aliens had not just been collecting random humans for slavery. They had been specifically targeting scientists, engineers, and other technical specialists. The Empire had planned to use human knowledge to improve their own technology. This revelation explained why the aliens had been so unprepared for organized resistance. They had expected to face frightened civilians and scattered military units, not a coordinated response from humanity's best and brightest minds working together. Dr. Park reached the central control room of the command ship and interfaced directly with the Zephyrian network. The master virus uploaded successfully and began spreading to every alien vessel in the fleet. Within minutes, the entire invasion force was crippled by cascading system failures. The tide of battle turned completely in humanity's favor as alien forces found themselves trapped with failing equipment and no way to call for reinforcements. Many Zephyrian units began surrendering rather than face destruction by increasingly confident human forces. Turner led the final assault on the remaining functional alien ships and proved that human pilots were now superior to their Zephyrian counterparts. The aliens who had come to Earth as hunters were being systematically hunted by their intended prey. Admiral Brooks accepted the surrender of the alien fleet commander as Zephyrian ships lost power and drifted helplessly in Earth orbit. The massive harvest vessels that had been designed to carry millions of human slaves were now filled with alien prisoners awaiting their fate. Colonel Carter coordinated the liberation of human prisoners from facilities around the globe. Millions of people who had been destined for slavery or worse were freed by the very resistance movement the aliens had dismissed as insignificant. The war was over, but the implications were just beginning to be understood. Humanity had not just defeated an alien invasion, they had captured an entire fleet of advanced starships and taken thousands of prisoners who possessed knowledge of galactic civilization. Dr. Miller began the process of fully reverse engineering Zephyrian technology, while Dr. Park interrogated alien prisoners to learn about the Empire and other potential threats. The knowledge gained would transform human civilization in ways that were impossible to predict. Morrison stood on the bridge of the captured command ship and looked out at Earth, knowing that everything had changed. Humanity was no longer confined to a single world or dependent on primitive technology. The species that had been marked for harvest had instead become the newest military power in the galaxy. The hunters had been hunted, and the prey had become the predator. The Zephyrian Empire had created its own worst nightmare by teaching humanity that they were not alone in the universe, and that survival required becoming something more than they had ever been before. The war was won, but the real journey was just beginning. 6 months after the failed Zephyrian invasion, Commander Vex Kaller stood in a human courtroom and tried to understand how completely his world had changed. The former fleet commander now wore simple prison clothing instead of his elaborate bio-armor. The creatures he had intended to harvest were now his captors and judges. The surrender negotiations had been unlike anything in Zephyrian history. For the first time in over 1,000 years, the Empire had been forced to accept terms from a species they had intended to conquer. President Linda Hayes and UN Representative Dan Foster had made it clear that humanity would not be satisfied. With simple withdrawal, the humans demanded full technological reparations for the damage caused by the invasion. They wanted detailed information about other hostile species in the galaxy. Most importantly, they required that the Zephyrian Empire acknowledge humanity as an equal power with rights to expand beyond their home system. Vex Kalar had tried to explain to the human negotiators that the Empire would never accept such terms. The idea of treating a former prey species as equals was inconceivable to Zephyrian leadership. But the Empire no longer had a choice in the matter. Dr. Miller had spent months analyzing captured Zephyrian technology, and her discoveries had revolutionized human science. The alien ships used propulsion systems that could cross interstellar distances in weeks instead of centuries. Their manufacturing techniques could produce materials stronger than anything in human industry. Most valuable of all was the alien database that contained detailed surveys of hundreds of star systems. The Zephyrians had been exploring the galaxy for millennia and had mapped resources and civilizations across thousands of light years. This information was now in human hands. The first human colony ship had been launched toward a system the Zephyrians had designated as suitable for harvesting. The world had been stripped of its native intelligent species centuries ago and was now empty except for automated mining equipment. It would become humanity's first foothold beyond Earth. Captain Morrison commanded the colonial expedition from the bridge of what had once been Vex Kalar's flagship. The massive ship had been completely rebuilt with hybrid human-alien technology that was superior to either parent design. Morrison's crew included both humans and Zephyrian prisoners who were working to earn reduced sentences. The integration of alien prisoners into human society had been one of the most difficult challenges of the post-war period. Many humans wanted revenge for the millions killed in the initial bombardment. But practical leaders like President Hayes understood that Zephyrian knowledge was too valuable to waste on executions. Dr. Park had established rehabilitation programs for alien prisoners who demonstrated genuine remorse for their actions. Many younger Zephyrians had been horrified to learn that their empire routinely committed genocide against intelligent species. These individuals were willing to help humanity in exchange for new lives in human society. The psychological impact on the Zephyrian Empire had been devastating. News of the failed harvest operation had spread throughout their territory and sparked rebellions among subject species who had been told that resistance was hopeless. The Empire's reputation for invincibility was shattered. War Master Thek Norris had refused all offers of cooperation and remained in maximum security detention. He continued to insist that the Empire would eventually return with sufficient force to complete the harvest operation. Human intelligence officers considered him a valuable source of information about Zephyrian military capabilities. Engineer Tony Walsh led the team that was designing humanity's first generation of interstellar warships. The vessels combined human tactical doctrine with alien technology to create something completely new. They were faster and more heavily armed than Zephyrian ships while maintaining the flexibility that had won the war. Admiral Brooks commanded the growing human space fleet from a base built inside a captured Zephyrian space station. The facility had been moved to Earth orbit and expanded with human construction techniques. It served as both military headquarters and shipyard for the expanding fleet. The most significant change in human society was the realization that Earth was just one world among millions. Humanity could no longer afford to waste resources on Internal conflicts when hostile alien empires controlled vast regions of the galaxy. The invasion had forced unprecedented cooperation between human nations. Pilot Turner had become humanity's first interstellar explorer when he led a reconnaissance mission to survey nearby star systems. His squadron of hybrid fighters had visited a dozen worlds and confirmed that several contained the ruins of civilizations destroyed by Zephyrian harvest operations. The discovery of these dead worlds had hardened human attitudes toward the Empire and other predator species. Humanity would not simply defend Earth, but would actively work to prevent future genocides. The prey species had become protectors of other potential victims. Dr. Miller's research team had made another breakthrough when they discovered how to improve Zephyrian manufacturing systems. Human creativity combined with alien precision produced materials and devices that surpassed anything either species had created independently. The hybrid technology gave humanity a significant advantage over existing galactic powers. Colonel Carter now commanded the human ground forces that were establishing bases on liberated worlds. His soldiers had become something new in galactic history, liberators who fought to free enslaved populations rather than conquer them for resources. The first liberation mission had targeted a world where the Zephyrians maintained a processing facility for captured sentients from dozens of species. Carter's forces had freed over 50,000 prisoners, representing 23 different alien civilizations. Many of these beings had never seen their homeworlds and had been born in captivity. The grateful aliens provided valuable intelligence about Zephyrian operations throughout the galaxy. They also served as translators and cultural advisors as humanity began making contact with other species. The human reputation as liberators spread quickly through underground networks of resistance fighters. Sergeant Stone had been promoted to lieutenant colonel and commanded the Special Forces units that conducted deep strikes against Zephyrian installations. His raiders used captured alien equipment to infiltrate facilities that had been considered impregnable. Stone's successes proved that human tactical thinking could overcome technological disadvantages. The economic transformation of human civilization had been almost as dramatic as the military changes. Access to alien manufacturing techniques and exotic materials had created entire new industries overnight. Unemployment had become a thing of the past as humanity raced to build the infrastructure needed for interstellar expansion. Communications. Officer Sam Pierce had learned to speak 17 alien languages and served as humanity's primary diplomat to other species. His first major success was negotiating an alliance with the Keth Collective, a group of worlds that had successfully resisted Zephyrian expansion for over 2 centuries. The Keth had been amazed to learn that a single world had defeated an entire Zephyrian harvest fleet. They offered to share their defensive technologies in exchange for human offensive capabilities. The alliance gave humanity its first major partners in the fight against galactic predators. Major Barnes had survived the Chicago operation and now commanded the rapid response forces that answered distress calls from threatened worlds. His ships could cross interstellar distances in days and arrive with enough firepower to discourage most aggressive species. Barnes had become a legend among oppressed populations throughout the local galactic region. The transformation of human military doctrine reflected the species' new role as galactic peacekeepers. Instead of fighting for territory or resources, human forces focused on preventing genocides and liberating enslaved populations. This mission gave human soldiers a moral purpose that made them incredibly effective fighters. Dr. Park's research into alien psychology had revealed why so many species became aggressive expansionists. Most intelligent life evolved on worlds with limited resources and developed cultures based on competition and domination. Humanity's unusual evolutionary history on a planet with abundant resources had created a species capable of cooperation on a scale unknown elsewhere. The Zephyrian Empire was fragmenting as subject species rebelled, and core worlds questioned the wisdom of continued expansion. Several Zephyrian colonies had declared independence and requested human protection from Imperial retaliation. The empire that had seemed invincible just months ago was collapsing from internal pressures. Commander Vex Collar had finally accepted the reality of his situation and agreed to cooperate with human authorities. His detailed knowledge of Imperial military operations was helping human forces plan liberation campaigns across dozens of star systems. The former Predator was now helping to dismantle the system he had once served. The most ambitious human project was the construction of a massive space station at the edge of Zephyrian territory. The facility would serve as a forward base for liberation operations and a refuge for freed prisoners who could not return to their destroyed homeworlds. Construction required resources from 20 different star systems and the cooperation of multiple alien species.